I want to start this off by talking about the review I did earlier. It was sandwiched in between games I knew were still going on and all of that other stuff, so it was rushed. And so I had the Calgary-Carolina score backwards, and again, the explanation that Brian Burke ended up giving for why that goal counted for Carolina was after I had started the review. So, and again, when you're bouncing around between games, and then factor in, I had a really, really, really crappy day. I was really in the midst of just this absolute crap day. If anybody thinks that I would cheer for Calgary over Carolina, you're new. Flames fans, you'll stand up for me, right? You guys know I'm not a Calgary fan after all the years of Calgary knocking Vancouver out of the playoffs. Every single time -2, I believe. I think 82 and 94 is it, and every other time Calgary's knocked him out. So I'm absolutely not a Flames fan, and it was just a crap day today. Just absolute, yeah. So I apologize for the fact there's no notes on tonight's games. There's no notes because in the midst of the crap day, everything else gets pushed back. So the treadmill got pushed back, and I was just kind of an ornery mood. So I ended up not doing the notes on these, and then I just said, all right, Shannon, just take a break. Just document the goals and the stats for tonight. We'll talk about the games, where teams are at the end of this. We'll do the power rankings, and then tomorrow we'll do it fresh. Tomorrow, of course, is Hometown Hockey Day. It's in Abbotsford. I intend to go to it for a while. I'm not going to be there for very long. It will impact my ability to take notes during games because I'll be at the Hometown Hockey thing. It's local, and one of my stepsons is going to be a part of something going on with it, so it's one of those things I really should get out of the house and go to. And after today, I probably could use some fresh air. And I've always said, the ideal that how do I put this? The idealistic view that people have of how a YouTuber's life works is not exactly necessarily the way that it actually works. So, this is why when people say, this guy had a rough life, but he's a hockey player, he made a lot of money. Sometimes doing the job that you love doesn't necessarily mean life's hunky-dory either. So, I'm not so judgmental when people talk about life and it being tough, because, yeah. All right, that preamble out of the way, let's talk about Dallas going into Nashville tonight and doing what I didn't think was possible. And I say that even though I watched them do this in the playoffs. Make Rene look pedestrian, basically. Now, the only note that's on here is that the Stars were up 2-0 in shots at 6 minutes. I tried. And it wasn't long after that I said, you know what? This isn't going to work. So we go to the second period, scoreless tie. Austin Watson would score for Nashville. Ham, Hughes, and Fabro with the assists at 1:04. And this is where, as a Dallas fan, I go, oh, okay, here we go, because Dallas has had trouble scoring lately. But Como would score a shorthanded goal from Dickinson and Lindell at 4:46. Rope Hintz then gets his 12th of the year from Dowling and Radulov at 6:40. And then Alexiak scores from Radulov and Sagan at 12:18. So that's 3 goals in less than 8 minutes. Good news if you're a Dallas fan. This is the kind of offense we know they're capable of. They just really haven't been producing it. And then Cogliano scores one at 16:09. It's 4-1. That's a quiet Nashville crowd. In the third period, no scoring, even though Nashville did their best. This was when Hudobin got better. Hudobin actually gets goal support tonight. I didn't anticipate that at all. And so Dallas comes out of tonight with a victory. Pretty amazing game for Hudobin. I'm surprised he wasn't the first star in this, to be honest. 37 saves on 38 shots. I would have made him the first star. Rene saves 18 out of 22. And they mentioned this. They only faced 8 shots in the second period and 4 of them went in. So when your goaltender's saving 50% of the shots, that's not going to work. Now, again, I don't know how many of those Rene actually could have saved. Como, Radulov, and Hudobin are your 3 stars. The shots were 11-9 Dallas in the first, 13-8 Nashville in the second, and 16-3 for Nashville in the third. 38-22 were your shots. The Dallas Stars go 0 for 2 on the power play. Nashville goes 0 for 3. So Dallas's power play comes up with nothing. However, Nashville's power play led to a shorthanded goal by Blake Como. So overall, they win the special teams battle tonight. Pretty impressive result, especially considering second half of a back-to-back. Good job, Rick Bowness, behind the bench. Now Dallas can move along to their next game. Moving along. Detroit, what's going on? So, Montreal looked like they were getting over the hump. And they were, all right, now we're going to get back into a playoff spot. A nice winning streak going on here. And this happens. I don't understand how this happens. Bertuzzi scores from Larkin at 3:21. That's where you wake up. However, they didn't really have a problem waking up. Their problem was Jonathan Bernier decided, tonight I'm going to play one of the best games of my entire career. And if you don't like it, I don't really care. Second period, no scoring, so we go into the third with a 1-0 lead for Detroit. No lead is safe when it's held by the Detroit Red Wings. We know this. There's a reason they committed tonight with 8 wins. However, they get a power play. Green scores from Athanasiou and Filppula at 7:42, and what's going on? The Montreal Canadiens would break up the shutout at 19 minutes and 13 seconds because Bernier can't have nice things. Tatar would score that from Weber and Armia. It makes it 2-1. But Detroit wins in Montreal 2-1. So Detroit, back-to-back wins. Remember what I said after they won that last game? We're going to 20. I really hope Detroit wins. Detroit fans yelled, we're going to 20, like in Moneyball. I want to see people yell, we're going to 20. It's always a weird quote that you'd hear in Moneyball, and then they did. So I like the movie Moneyball, to be honest. I know it's baseball. I know this is hockey and that's baseball, but really good movie. Sad that Oakland still hasn't won anything since that movie came out, so Moneyball's not a guarantee of a championship. Okay, Bernier saves 42 out of 43. He was fantastic. Price saved 18 out of 20. It's not his fault that the other team had Bernier playing fantastic. Bernier's your first star, Green second, and Bertuzzi's the third star. Nice to see Green get in there. He's had a bit of an up and down year, so nice to see him get that game winner. Power plays, Detroit goes 1 for 4. Montreal only had one power play. They didn't score on it tonight, so that's a problem as well. They didn't force power plays, and yeah, the shots were in favor of Montreal the entire way. 12-7 in the first, 10-5 in the second, and then 21-8 in the third. He threw everything but the kitchen sink at Bernier. 43-20 were the shots in favor of Montreal. You just have those nights. For Montreal, it's one of those nights. They had all the shots, just couldn't get the victory. So when the power rankings come up later, remember they just lost against Detroit, so I had to consider that when I was ranking them. All right, that being said, moving along. Capitals. This was a big game tonight. This was one where I looked at this and I said, you know what? This is going to tell me where the Capitals are at. Now, it also kind of tells you where Tampa's at because they're at home. I've been waiting for Tampa to go on a winning streak. Now I'm going to have to wait a little longer. And for Tampa fans, this had to be frustrating because it feels like they take that couple of steps forward and then they come back down to earth again. Now, this was a game that Samsonov was fantastic. And again, it asked that question with the Capitals. When you're negotiating with Holtby, are you looking at Samsonov and Vanacek and going, we don't want to commit long term. We don't want to give him a whole bunch of money because we've got some good goaltending here. And we could take that money we would spend on Holtby and give it to somebody else instead and solidify another part of the roster, knowing our goaltender will be okay if Samsonov's the starter. It's worthy of discussion. And at some point during the holiday season, we'll get into topics of discussion for every single team going into the new year. Backstrom would score at 6:24 to make it 1-0 for the Capitals. That was your score after one. Second period, Braden Point got a power play goal from Kaloran and Kucherov at 5:45 while Adam was losing his mind because the Caps kept taking penalties. But that would be the only power play goal that Tampa Bay scored. So while they kept taking penalties, that was where the damage stopped. So it's 1-1 after 2. In the third period, they made a statement early. First, it's Eller from Panik and Orlov at 1:58. Hathaway scored from Leipzig and Gudis at 2 minutes and 43 seconds. That made it 3-1. But Jan Ruda with his first of the year from Kaloran and Gord at 11:16. That makes it 3-2. Close game until Oshie scores from Vrana and Kuznetsov about a minute later. So 12-19. They shut all that down at 4-2. They did pull the goaltender. In the end, it doesn't matter. Wilson gets the empty netter from Oshie and Backstrom at 19:21. So Oshie with a goal and an assist. Backstrom with a goal and an assist. Notice, no Ovechkin on this board. And yet they win 5-2. So that's the good news for the Capitals. And the bad news for Tampa, you shut down Ovechkin and you allow 5 goals. Samsonov saved 26 out of 28. Vasilevsky saved 29 out of 33. 3 stars are Samsonov, Eller, and Killorn. So Killorn with a couple of helpers tonight. He gets the 3rd star. Power plays, Washington goes 0 for 2. Tampa went 1 for 5. That's a little bit high when it comes to the number of power plays. But you only allow 1 out of 5. It kind of feels like a victory based on that. And it feels like a victory definitely based on the score. Shots were 12-8 Washington in the first, 11-9 Tampa in the second, 13-9 for the Capitals in the third. Final shots, 34-28 in favor of the visiting team from Washington. Pretty darn solid effort all around. All right, moving along. Boston. The Bruins in against the Florida Panthers. This is one of those games. Boston still makes me nervous. The one complaint I've had with Boston is I want to see them play a full 60-minute game. And I thought we were seeing that, and then we didn't. So first period, DeBrusk scores from McAvoy and Krejci at 14:41. So coming out of the first period, lots of shots for Boston, tons of shots. Bobrovsky's trying to steal one. He could have stole one tonight. But going into the second, it's 1-0 Boston. The only thing making me nervous, they've got 22 shots and only 1 goal to show for it. Second period, however, Krejci scores early from DeBrusk and Moore at 3 minutes and 14 seconds. Excellent. Then they get a power play. Pastrnak scores from Marchand and Krug at 7 minutes and 30 seconds. Not even halfway through the game, it's 3-0 for Boston. But notice it's against Florida. And what happened between Boston and Florida early in the year was 4-0 for Boston. Florida came back and won it. Now, being an optimist at times, I looked at this game and went, they're not going to blow a 3-goal lead. Third period, Pesek scores from Ekblad and Yandel at 2:46. I see that and I go, well, they shouldn't blow a 3-goal lead. Yandel scored from Trocheck and Ekblad at 9:13. And it's right about here I decided I hate hockey. Tired of this. Because again, I thought if Florida comes back and wins this, again, it feeds into that narrative of they're never out. And it feeds into that idea of, well, you can give up a few goals, they'll just come back and win it. I don't like it. And I said it early in the year when they were doing that regularly. As the year goes along, it becomes more and more difficult to do that because defenses get smarter and better. And Boston would lock it down, although there were some tense moments there. And Halak made me nervous, especially because that Yandel goal, he might have been able to get that. But Pastrnak scores the empty netter from Marchand and Bergeron at 17:50. So people will say, well, see, Shannon said Pastrnak was settling down and calming down. Now you got 2 goals tonight. Well, we'll see if it's the start of a hot streak or not. One of them's an empty netter. One of them's on his power play. So, yes, this might be the start of another hot streak for Pastrnak, but I don't know. We'll see. It's got to be 3 or 4 games before you can get into that. Halak, 31 saves on 33 shots. Bobrovsky saved 38 out of 41. Pretty solid game from him. Pastrnak, DeBrusk, and Yandel are your 3 stars. 1 for 3. That's the Boston power play. 0 for 3 for Florida. Shots were 22-11 Boston in the first. 11-10 in both the second and the third in favor of the Florida Panthers, who barely lost this one. Again, this made me really nervous because I saw Boston lose a 4-0 lead prior against Florida, and being in Florida, I thought, the odds of them getting energy from this crowd and maybe coming back. One other thing I noticed in this game, lots of Boston jerseys in that crowd. It felt like the lower bowl was more full than normal, and there were a lot of Bruins fans in those seats. So 42-33 were the final shots in favor of Boston, and for those fans that made the journey, or for those fans that came out, who may live locally and actually be Bruins fans, they went home pretty happy tonight. That being said, I need to change boards. Here we go. The Los Angeles Kings. The Road Kings did all right, considering they're the Road Kings tonight. They went in and they made Pittsburgh feel a little bit nervous tonight. And Jari's numbers, not too bad considering the amount of shots that he faced, but that goals against average is going to come up. This is why I track save percentage, not goals against average. First period, LA let them know that they meant business. 13:08, Wagner scores from Kempe and Lizotte. Toffoli scored from Walker and Luff at 18 minutes, at which point I'm like, what's going on here? How does LA have a 2-0 lead after 1, and they're out shooting them too? Second period, LA kept out shooting them, but the goals were going in their net. First, it's Rust from Gensel and Letang at 3:31. People know I love Brian Rust. Fantastic player. He gets a power play goal later on, again from Gensel and Letang at 17:36. So Chris Letang had a pretty good game tonight. He doesn't get a star, so I'll give him one of my honorary stars because they don't mean anything. But there you go, Chris Letang. If you're watching this, honorary star tonight. Third period, right around the halfway mark. Pittsburgh looks like they're salting it away. Bluger scores from Rust and Letang at 9:26. I said Letang had a great game. And then Johnson scores from McCann and Gensel at 11:58. So Jake Gensel had a few helpers tonight as well. And it's 4-2. It's the Kings. There's 8 minutes left. But Clifford scored from Carter and Doughty at 15 minutes. Clifford, that goal-scoring machine. And then he helped set up the next one. Amadio from Walker and Clifford at 16:23. He got 2 points in a minute and 23 seconds. I have no way of knowing this. That's the fastest that Clifford scored 2 points in an NHL game. Now somebody's going to go Google that. In overtime, 4-4, no scoring. So, the Penguins had the puck for that entire overtime, basically. When you look at the shot clock, they had the puck the whole time. Could not get the winner, but in the shootout they did. And who got it? Rust. So he's your first star, Gensel second star, and Clifford third star in the game. Quick made 23 saves on 27 shots. Jari saved 38 out of 42. Power plays, the Kings go for 3, because of course they did. The Penguins go 1 for 4. Shots were 15-10 LA in the first, 12-5 LA in the second. In the third, 15-6 LA, and then in overtime, Pittsburgh played keep away, and they outshot LA 6-0. Final shots, 42-27. And so for the Kings, this long season continues. They get a point. Did they gain any ground on a California team today? No, they didn't. But they got a point, so there's a point there. You've got to find a silver lining in this. And for Pittsburgh, they escape. They get the 2 points out of what was a trap game. And really, in all honesty, with all the injuries they've suffered through this year, they'll take the win in the trap game. They'll take the shootout win and move along from here. All right. Speaking of moving along, we're going to Philly against Minnesota. So with Philly, I do wonder, this is a game where they didn't generate very many shots. And I know it may sound like an excuse, but with that gut punch of what happened with Oscar Lindblom, where he is out for the year with bone cancer, does that outside distraction affect them on the ice tonight? Speaking as somebody with outside distractions that affected him in his first review of the night, it can. So, again, I wanted to wear a Flyers jersey for the preview this morning, and I'm really, really, for the first time in my life, I'm kind of rooting for the Flyers now, where I want to see them have a good season. I want to see them rally. This is, kind of a big thing. Now, Van Riemsdyk scored from Frost in a minute and 34 seconds. So early in the first period, it looks like Philly's all right. But Parise scores from Fiala and Donato at 6:16, and then Stahl scores from Brodin and Suter at 7:51. Coming out of the first period, it is a 2-1 game for Minnesota. Second period, Stahl scores at 9:47. That's a power play goal. At least it was listed that way, and yet the power play said 0 for 5, so they must have changed that. If they didn't, well, I just took away a power play goal from Eric Stahl, and I apologize. Not the first time today I've apologized. Anyways, so Stahl gets a goal. They're up 3-1, and going into the third, and in that third period, I thought Minnesota played really, really well. I watched a lot of this through the late second and then in parts of the third. I thought Minnesota played this game really, really well. Soucy would get the empty netter from Brodin at 17:46. Your final score is 4-1. This, to me, proves that Minnesota is a pretty darn good team. They really legitimately are. Hart saves 24 out of 27 in the loss. Stalock saves 17 out of 18 in the win. So they didn't generate as many shots as you would normally see from Philadelphia. Your 3 stars are Stahl, Suter, and Fiala. Power plays, 0 for 3 for Philly, 0 for 5 for Minnesota. Shots were 7-5 in favor of the Wild in the first, 8-3 in the second, and 13-10 in the third. That's how we get to 28-18. So, again, for Philadelphia, come on, guys, get through this. I really believe that this can be a really big year, a really big rallying point. And for Minnesota, I don't want to take anything from them, because for Minnesota, this result tonight is fantastic. There is an opening in the West. I believe that. There's an opening in the West. Minnesota can go in and get that, as much as their fans might go nuts if they make the playoffs and go out in the first round again. But, on the upside, right now they look pretty good, and especially at home. They're excellent at home. All right, moving along. Toronto. So I'm wearing Leafs. I know it's Tavares, and it says assistant captain, and he's the captain. I'm not spending money to go get one that says captain, so I apologize. He was named captain after I got this. But, tonight they didn't really need their captain. He didn't really get on the board. This was a big game for Toronto, and it is a huge setback for Edmonton. This is 4 in a row that they've dropped. The Oilers are in trouble. I was asked on social media today, do you still have Edmonton as a playoff team? I don't know the answer to that right now. They're still technically in a playoff position. They didn't lose ground on Calgary because Calgary lost earlier today 4-0. So notice that's the correct score, 4-0 for Carolina. But this is still worrying. First period, Kerfoot scores from Riley at 4:38. What's that? He's Kerfoot again? Okay, all right. Became Kerfoot during last year in Colorado. Now it's back to Kerfoot. Anyways, it's just a different way of saying it, just a very small change. Second period is Mikheyev scoring at 5:27 from Kerfoot and Engvall. So 2 goals scored around the 5-minute mark in both the first and second period. And this was a really, really solid road game by Toronto and by Freddie Anderson. Now, if Anderson's going to be played a ton, it didn't show tonight that it's going to bother him. But remember, it may not bother him until around February or March. Couple years ago, when Freddie's play started to drop as the season went along, it was around February, March, as I remember, that it started to sag. So tonight, he looked excellent. Great game from him. Third period, Chason scored on the power play from Draisaitl and Clefbaum at 6:08. So you start thinking, all right, well, maybe Edmonton's going to get back into this. About 7.5 minutes later, it's Gauthier from Timashov at 13:49. And that made it 3-1, and the Oilers weren't scoring 2 more in this game. Marner would score from Hyman at 18:39. That makes the final score 4-1 for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Impressive win for Toronto on the road. This road trip has been pretty darn solid. I know the Calgary game had its bad moments, but they win in Vancouver, they win in Edmonton. That's 2 wins in 3 games. That ain't bad. Anderson saved 36 out of 37 in the win. Koskinen saved 28 out of 31 in the loss. Kerfoot, Hall, and Chason are the 3 stars listed. Hall on here, I'm not sure why Hall was one of the 3 stars and why Freddie Anderson wasn't listed on the app as one of the 3 stars. I don't see Hall on the board, which doesn't mean he didn't have a good game. It's strange. Power plays, Toronto went 1 for 1. The Oilers went 1 for 2. The shots were 13-12 Toronto in the first, 11-9 Oilers in the second, and 14-10 Oilers in the third. That's how you get to 37-32 in favor of the home team. But for Oiler fans, this is a worrying problem. Too many goals being allowed, not enough goals being scored. They're not outscoring their troubles right now, and it just feels like this is snowballing. So a team that was routinely top 5 or 6 in the NHL, it looks like they're on their way downwards. And I feel bad because I did a video on which of the top 10 teams is going to fall, and it looks like Edmonton, which was a popular choice, is the one that's going to be the one that takes the fall. And I don't know. Some people say that my videos are a bit of a jinx, so I don't believe it, but when I see something like this, I go, oh, come on. Then I'm going to get accused of jinxing the Oilers. I don't want to be accused of jinxing the Oilers. All right, and I don't have those kinds of powers. Chicago in against St. Louis. What happened, Chicago? I'm not sure how this happens. First period, there's no score, and St. Louis keeps Chicago from getting shots, but it's okay because Corey Crawford plays fantastic in the first period. So it's okay that Chicago gets virtually no shots in the first period. Second period, Saad scores at 19 seconds from Taves and Gustafsson. So this is perfect, right? You only get 2 shots in the first period, and your first shot of the second period goes in. It's demoralizing. It's one of those things that'll drive the other team's coach insane. We're playing great defensively, and we're losing. How does this happen? So we go to the third period, and it's 1-0. And the Hawks have managed 11 shots in total. But 30 seconds into that period, Taves passes it to Saad again, and Saad buries his second of the game. Great. 2-0, right? Then Kane would score from Strome at 4:16. It's 3-0, even though they'd been outshot badly, outplayed. but it really doesn't matter because they're up 3-0. Until Bozak scores from Thomas at 4:40, which is 24 seconds after it had become a 3-0 game. They enjoyed that so much, they did it again. Bozak from Thomas at 13:08. And De La Rose enjoyed that so much that 12 seconds later, he ties the game from O'Reilly. So I go over to see what's going on here, come back here, and I'm like, wait, it's 3-3? It was 3-1. How is it 3-3? So Panger starts talking about how they had 2 goals in 12 seconds, and they showed the replays, and I'm like, wow, all right, so much for that lead for Chicago. And then I thought, okay, so if Chicago can at least force overtime, Chicago looks like they're in free fall completely. They're falling apart, and this team is destined for just crash, right? But if they can at least force overtime and get a point out of this, no. Falk scores from Thomas at 17:34. That's 3 assists for Thomas in the third period. So maybe this is the start of Robert Thomas putting together a really decent point streak. Crawford saved 34 out of 38. He just bent, and then it seemed to break in the third period. Four goals that they scored in that 13-minute period there. Binnington saved 19 out of 22, so even though those numbers aren't great, he gets the win. Bozak, Falk, and Thomas are your 3 stars. Power plays, Chicago 0 for 4, St. Louis 0 for 3. The shots were 13-2 in the first for St. Louis. 14-9 St. Louis in the second. 11-11 in the third, and yet they scored 4 goals in those 11 shots. Final shots 38-22 for St. Louis. And for Chicago, this descent that these guys have been in, it continues. And this might be the most worrying loss I've seen for Chicago yet, because when you have a 3-goal lead on St. Louis, in St. Louis, 4.5 minutes into the third period, you don't lose that. But that being said, I need to change boards one last time. I want to say something positive about New Jersey. And I know they win tonight, and that might be the positive, but I want to say something else positive. So the Taylor Hall thing is nearing its completion. They pull him out of the lineup. And I get the feeling that this is good for the New Jersey Devils. The reason why it's not, well, you take out their best player. What are you talking about? It's good. Because the players know this is hanging over them. It's been hanging over them since training camp. And when they get off to that slow start, they know Taylor Hall is going to be gone. Having him off the ice and off the roster, it's one concern they have gone. And for McLeod tonight, kind of allowed him to show, maybe I can realize some of that potential I had a couple years ago. Boquist scores from McLeod and Wood at 2 minutes and 17 seconds. So 2 minutes and 17 seconds into this game, Elan Nasruddin might have been looking at the scoreboard and going, maybe I get my first win tonight. That would be nice. And agreed. This has been a miserable run for New Jersey. It's not fun to report on it either. Goligoski scores on the power play from Hinostroza at 15:35. That ties it up. And Arizona being at home and Arizona being in a position where if they're looking at the out-of-town scoreboard, they're like, gee, Toronto's beating Edmonton. If we win tonight, we can put some daylight between us and Edmonton. Calgary already lost tonight. We can really kind of take a stranglehold on first place. So after one period, it's 1-1. Second period, no scoring. So 1-1 entering the third. And again, if you're Arizona, you have to look at this and go, all right, we're not getting the breaks because Blackwood's robbing us blind. But if we can somehow generate a goal or even, worst case scenario, we end up going to overtime. We at least get a point. Get that one more point ahead of Edmonton. We're good. Palmieri had different plans. He scores from McLeod and Wood. They both get 2 assists tonight at 11:34. And the New Jersey Devils, they hung on at the end. Arizona did their best, but it wasn't enough tonight. 2-1 win for New Jersey. So this is one of those ones that you look at on the schedule and you go, well, we got New Jersey tonight. We're going to win that one. Good, awesome. And then this is why you have to play the games. Chris Berman, I used to hear that on the football recaps every Sunday night I watch Chris Berman. He goes, and that's why you play the games. And Don Taylor on Sportsnet, too. That's why you play the games. Or not Sportsnet, Sports Page on Vancouver. It's very... Blackwood, 31 saves on 32 shots. Kemper, 31 saves on 33 shots. So both goalies were pretty good. Palmieri, Blackwood, and Goligoski are your stars tonight. 0 for 3 was New Jersey's power play. 1 for 3 was Arizona's. Shots, 11-10 New Jersey in the first. 13-9 for the Arizona Coyotes in the second. In the third, 13-9 for New Jersey. Final shots, 33-32. Very good game for New Jersey. And again, This may be because Taylor Hall's out of the lineup, so they don't have to think about that anymore. They know he's getting traded. We don't know where yet. Arizona, ironically, is apparently the front runner, and it makes sense. They've got a lot of young assets. They can part with a draft pick here and there. They know they're good, and they also have the cap space to keep him past this season, so they could trade for him and then sign him to an extension. And he might be more willing to sign an extension with a team that looks like they're on the up and up and ready to take off, rather than New Jersey, which looks like they're in for another really, really long season. But it could be to their benefit to make this trade now and get out from underneath that dark cloud. Let me know if you're a New Jersey fan, if you feel that way, or if this is just a one-off and they're going to go right back into that dark cloud again. All right, last up, Vancouver. You know, last year Vancouver showed that the trip to California doesn't have to be the Valley of Death. Well, it's back. Hurdle scores from Thornton and LeBanc at 10 minutes and 50 seconds. Thornton continues to get assists here and there. Still has not got a goal, and I think it's 433 games now since Thornton's last goal. I may be off by a couple, but I think it's 433 games. You guys can check it out. Just Google it. Second period, no scoring, so we go into the third with a 1-0 lead, and I'm like, all right, well, let's see if they get a goal. Because, again, it just felt like Arundel was on, because, of course, he's against Vancouver, so, of course, he has the best game of his career, potentially, or at least the best game of this season. Meyer gets a goal from Kane and Carlson at 7 minutes and 9 seconds. Virtanen scored from Gaudette and Tanev at 7 minutes and 57 seconds. That Virtanen goal, if you haven't seen it, it is fantastic. It really is. It's a fantastic goal, and it means that if you were watching the game and going, I'd really like to shotgun a beer, Virtanen got a goal, so you can do that. Kane would then score an empty netter at 18:39 from Couture and Goudreau. The Vancouver Canucks dominated the second and the third period mostly, just could not solve Dell often enough. After that empty net goal, they pulled the goalie again, and Horvat scored from Hughes and Besser at 19:32. That's the 9th goal for Horvat. All of them on the road. He can't score at home. It's weird. Nobody can figure out why, but he can't score at home. Couture then scored from Vlasic at 19:52 into the empty net, so they allowed 2 empty net goals tonight. Here are 3 stars, because they weren't reported at the time I made up this board. Arundel, Timo Meier, and Joe Thornton. Thornton with an assist. He gets in the 3 stars. I probably would have given Kane one for that, the fact he got the empty netter and the assist. And honorable mention to Erik Karlsson for all the times he passed the puck to the Vancouver Canucks and tried to get them a goal. He tried really hard to get them a goal. I think he coughed up the puck in his own zone like 3 times. It was ridiculous. But they weathered it. And the funny thing is, shortly after giving it up in the third period, he then assisted on a goal. And they mentioned, the announce team even said, he was trying to assist on a Canucks goal and gave up on that and decided to give it to San Jose instead. Markstrom saves 23 out of 25. He was very good. Dell saved 31 out of 33. Great game from Arundel. Shots were 12-7 San Jose in the first, 12-7 Vancouver in the second, 15-8 Vancouver in the third. Final shots 34-27 for the Canucks, who went 0 for 3 on the power play because San Jose's penalty kill is fantastic. San Jose's power play itself went 0 for 2. Both teams came in with decent penalty kills, and both of them showed they are pretty good at killing penalties tonight. So there you go. How did this affect the playoff picture? The Capitals would play Philadelphia. The Islanders would play Carolina. Boston would play Pittsburgh. Buffalo would play Montreal. Sitting just outside of the playoff spots, the Rangers, Toronto, who leapfrogged past both Tampa and Florida. So Toronto's closer to that playoff spot. And in the West, St. Louis takes back first again. And they would play Vegas. Colorado would play Detroit. Why would Detroit be in there? Dallas. Again, long day. Arizona. First place again. So they would play Winnipeg, and Edmonton would play Calgary, and everybody would go nuts if we got the Battle of Alberta. Sitting just outside a playoff spot, Minnesota, Vancouver, the Nashville Predators, San Jose, and Anaheim. Now, Anaheim's kind of a stretch to say just outside a playoff spot, but they're close to San Jose in points. The interesting thing is this. So Calgary's third. The closest team to Calgary is Vancouver, and they look like they're sinking. San Jose, they get the win tonight. We'll see if they're able to get it together and start winning again. And Anaheim's kind of all over the place. So while it's easy to say, well, with the way the Oilers are playing, they could fall out of the playoffs, it might be more difficult to fall out of the playoffs than one might imagine because there isn't really anybody in the Pacific pushing their way up from underneath. We are definitely in a situation where I mean, like Vegas could absolutely push the Oilers down to a wild card spot. So, all right, maybe. Maybe Minnesota pushes the Oilers out. All right, so Vegas. Vegas can push everybody down and deny us the Battle of Alberta. Don't do it, Vegas. Don't deny us the Battle of Alberta. They're going to deny us the Battle of Alberta. There you go. There's the review for tonight. Power rankings will be up soon. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. It means a ton. This channel is what keeps me sane. So when people say, "Oh, you should just take a break," no, the channel keeps me sane. I'd be completely bonkers if I didn't have the channel. So thank you guys for keeping me from going bonkers. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video, and I'm well aware that saying bonkers makes me old. But hey, thank you guys so much again. I will talk to you soon.